According to the U.S. Department of Justice, Houston is one of the largest hubs for sex trafficking in the United States. So it makes sense then that it's also home to a series of unprecedented lawsuits looking to hold tech companies accountable for the trafficking that happens on their platforms.
Hi, Annie.
Welcome to Houston.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Good to have you. Well, come on in. This is abnormal weather for us here.
Annie McAdams is a successful personal injury lawyer in Houston, but now she has a new target, big tech.
So wait, how do all of you know each other? What's the connection between everyone at this table?
We're all co-counsels on the Jane Doe trafficking litigation.
And who are your adversaries right now?
Right now, it's big tech. All the high-dollar lawyers that they can send at me. I mean, that's, I always crack up every time we go to a hearing. It's like 2 of us and 19 of them.
What is that like when there's 19 lawyers on the other side?
Motivating. It's not scary. I don't fear any of that. There's no one that they can hire that's going to scare me. Hit me all you want. We'll hit right back.
She's going after big tech because she says they've knowingly facilitated sex trafficking on their platforms. She's not the first to try it, but she's the first that may have a chance to win because of a controversial set of bills President Trump signed into law in 2018, dubbed FOSTA-SESTA. FOSTA-SESTA altered Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which had protected tech platforms from liability for the crimes committed on their sites.
The bill is called FOSTA for Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act. It adds tougher penalties for websites that facilitate prostitution or sex trafficking.
Annie currently represents 98 sex trafficking victims across multiple states. She's hired a cadre of lawyers and experts to help.
Talking about the clients, I do have some sad news to report. Jane Doe 7 committed suicide last week. We don't know what the family's going to do at this point. There is dialogue about calling a deal, but I think we have to bring it back down to the basics. This is on the pleadings, and whether a reasonable person could infer from the pleadings that Facebook is a product. The only way they're going to beat us is on the law, and to me, it's the distortion of the law, because once we get there and we get to show the evidence, they won't beat us. No way.
She and her colleagues brought their case under product liability law, asserting that Facebook is basically a dangerous product. When Facebook claimed immunity based on the broad protections Section 230 provides, Annie's team hit back, citing FOSTA-SESTA. So far, some judges are ruling in her favor. They've denied Facebook's attempts to have the case thrown out, making their claims against Facebook the very first to advance past dismissal in state court. What is Section 230?
So Section 230 is the part of the Communications Decency Act that addresses immunity. If you listen to the tech companies, they'll tell you that it's immunity for anything and everything under the sun that they could possibly be charged with or, any allegation against them. Congress recently in 2018 said, wait a minute, this was never intended to be used as some broad extension of blanket immunity, specifically and most importantly in regards to sex trafficking. I knew very early on that Facebook was in my crosshairs because their role in connecting these sex traffickers with these children is undeniable. I really got tired of having the same story from any different victim I interviewed. I met them on Facebook or I met them on Instagram. They are told that they're pretty, that you could be a model. We usually see recruitment start as young as 12 years old. That sex trafficker does not get into Jane Doe's living room without the platform.
Who do you think you'll actually get on trial? Mark Zuckerberg gonna come down to Houston and have to answer your questions?
I believe so, yes.
What do you think they say about you behind your back?
I think that initially they thought it was a joke. We're gonna get rid of this nuisance. But then all of a sudden it's, oh, wait a minute, the nuisance isn't going away. Oh, wait a minute, the nuisance can argue in court. If he doesn't know my name now, he'll certainly know it before next year, that's for damn sure.
Sex trafficking is on the rise. According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they've seen a 1,070% increase in the number of reports regarding child sex trafficking since 2010. While big tech has taken a hands-off approach, there's one tech startup vet trying to get into the fray. Rob Spector created an artificial intelligence app to stop sex trafficking by using fake ads to lure buyers.
So you go to these websites that you know are producing the most child trafficking cases, and you post decoy advertisements. And instead of placing a phone number for your burner phone as an undercover. You instead use a phone number that we provision from our telecommunications platform. So you see an ad, you want to respond to it, and then we can ask something like price, and we can use street lingo. We can ask like how many roses. And then from a phone number you don't recognize, you get a super scary deterrence message on behalf of the partnering law enforcement agency.
Wow. And then what happens typically when someone gets this?
88% of the time, we never see them again.
Are there things that Facebook, YouTube, Twitter could do right now that would make them more safe?
Absolutely. Facebook knows a week before you talk to your doctor that you're pregnant. Google knows 2 weeks before you talk to a realtor that you're in the market for a house. You would imagine that they would be able to apply the same kinds of technologies and tools to rooting out this kind of toxic content on their platforms, and they don't. The reason why they don't is they don't have a financial incentive to do that. Nearly every industrialized technology that has been created and transformed lives in the United States had some kind of toxic byproduct that they were doing to society at first, until society held them accountable for the toxicity that they were introducing.
Do you think that Facebook, YouTube, Twitter should be responsible?
I think they demonstrably are responsible. How many children are acceptable? Is it 150 kids a year? Is it 15,000 kids a year? How do we determine how many kids is an acceptable fodder to continue the status quo of exploitation? The suggestion that free speech and a free and open internet is only possible in an era where no one is responsible, I don't think is one that I can really credit.
Let's give a warm welcome to my friend, the Attorney General, Bill Barr.
The changes FOSTA SESTA made to Section 230 may just be the beginning, because even the DOJ is starting to scrutinize it.
Given this changing technological landscape, valid questions have been raised on whether Section 230's broad immunity is still necessary, at least in its current form.
Several bills have also been proposed that chip away at big tech's legal shield. Tech leaders and free speech advocates see Section 230 as a foundational part of the internet, basically the online version of the First Amendment. Free speech attorney Larry Walters is suing to overturn FOSTA SESTA and restore Section 230 to its original form. Tell me about your lawsuit.
So the lawsuit is a federal challenge to the constitutionality of FOSTA SESTA. There's a First Amendment problem with the law because it censors speech. It's one of the most significant pieces of online censorship legislation in the last 20 years. We've seen dozens and dozens of websites that included some area of the site devoted to sexually oriented speech simply shut down because they didn't know how the law would be interpreted, yet they're facing 25 years in prison if they get it wrong. But beyond that, for the average American, they're no longer allowed on many platforms to post anything that is sexually oriented.
What have you actually heard from your clients and how it's changed their lives?
For some people, it was a death sentence. It had resulted in making the entire sex work industry much more dangerous and confining it to its most dangerous business model.
I'm on my way to meet with Alex Andrews. She's a former sex worker and now advocates for other sex workers. She is also a litigant in the lawsuit fighting FOSTA SESTA. She's represented by Larry, as well as other unlikely clients, like Human Rights Watch and Archive.org. After FOSTA SESTA was signed into law, what did you have to do to avoid criminalization?
We do community outreach every week, and we don't advertise it online because technically harm reduction services like providing food and condoms and safety information to people who are trading sex at the street level could be construed as facilitating prostitution online.
It's burning, it's burning. Ooh, shit. Hold on, hon.
We tried to move our websites offshore. We had to evaluate differently the things that we posted online, whereas we used to advertise sex worker socials and sex worker events. We had to be much more careful about how we framed that. Everybody's just had to adjust to what the new reality might be.
Do you worry at all that for regular folks who hear about this, that they'll say, okay, I understand your position and your plight, but what you do is illegal. And I do care about children who may be harmed online. I do care about abusive imagery that's reported on Facebook.
I don't think that abuse of one kind deserves abuse of another kind. And there is no bigger advocate for stopping violence, for advocating against trafficking than sex workers. We do not want to be forced or coerced, and we do not want other people or minors to be forced or coerced. We really don't.
For you, extra needles. Sharps container and 100 needles for you.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna take this to the car.
Okay.
With their online advertising blocked since FOSTA SESTA, Alex's organization has had to increase their presence on the street at night. Ashanti and Milan are both sex workers and advocates.
Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, I'm basically out on the streets just passing out condoms and water to sex workers that are still on the streets.
Oh, God. This is Nashville Avenue. These are like called the back streets. This is where all the trans women work at. Me, myself, this is the same street I worked on for the last 17 years of my sex working life.
3 more years, girl, you can retire.
When the internet first came along, it helped a lot of girls to get off the street and gave them a better way of life because they were making so much money. They were able to get apartments. They were able to get more established, but still doing sex work in a safer way than working on the streets. So once that bill was signed, that was like taken away from them.
While FOSTA SESTA has directly impacted sex workers, social media continues to be a vehicle for the online sex trafficking that the bill was designed to stop. Facebook denied our multiple requests for comment for the story. But one tech company is talking. Cloudflare, a web infrastructure company that manages 10% of all internet requests, including users who've engaged in trafficking. In 2017, Cloudflare got in the spotlight when their team announced they'd no longer provide support to neo-Nazi website, The Daily Stormer. What does Cloudflare think of FOSTA SESTA?
So FOSTA SESTA is an exception to the liability rules that otherwise govern the internet. But we are a network infrastructure company, and SESTA FOSTA doesn't actually distinguish us from the type of providers that are looking at content. It treats us exactly the same way. And it's not that we don't think that there should be responsibility for problematic content online. I think the challenge is trying to incentivize people to take action at the level where it's actually going to affect change.
Can you spitball an idea of what good regulation looks like?
Good tech regulation is nuanced. This notion that we can somehow just solve this problem by taking away a protection from liability, that is not smart regulation. The concern comes up when governments actually decide that it's much better to just turn off the internet or to very aggressively filter because they want to shape a narrative. You want people to be able to opt for what they want while still not fully censoring the internet. I think we all have to take some responsibility in thinking about how we build something that we all want, how we do smart regulation, how we really address the harms, particularly ones that technology has made worse, is important.
So what is the look that you go for, Annie?
Oh, there's no look. Just at least functioning human being is what my aim is for. No, there's no look, but this is the South. You gotta be a well put together woman.
Mm-hmm. Annie's made progress in the claims she's pursuing against Facebook. An appeals court rejected Facebook's attempts to stop the lawsuit, and the case is now likely to go to the Texas Supreme Court.
We knew that this was gonna be a long game. We have to walk a very fine line in this litigation. There are First Amendment implications. These companies knowingly facilitate sex trafficking. So cloak it as you want, but I'll call it like it is, and the evidence supports my side. Once we get there, I guarantee you there'll be change in the tech industry. Guaranteed.